So for today's video, we are going to be taking a look at one of the pre-made decks again, this time the Redoran Onslaught, and we're going to make some upgrades, make some changes to the deck to hopefully help out some players that are either new to the game or are looking for a budget-friendly alternative. Friendly reminder that as we look to make these changes, I'm only going to be suggesting cards that can be crafted and come from the pack-based sets. So that would be core set, that would be Heroes of Skyrim, and that would be Houses of Morrowind. I will also potentially suggest adding cards that you would receive from the story mode. So assuming that you've completed all of the tutorial, I'll suggest those as well. But we will not be including cards from things like Forgotten Hero Pack, Madhouse Collection, or the story modes, because those are a pretty big upfront investment and they aren't necessarily new player friendly. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in, and we're going to start by looking at the cards to remove. Now, I will say up front, for this particular deck, it's going to look like we remove a lot. In fact, we're going to remove just slightly over half of the cards total from this deck. But the good news is when we get to the part where we start adding cards, all of the cards I'm going to suggest are very good quality cards to have in your collection in terms of commons and rares. These are going to be things that are mid-range staples for the attributes, things that you will use not just in this deck, but in many other decks. So that's the good news. Right out of the gate here, we're going to remove all of the 1-drops. Ashlander Zealot here, it can do some work for you, and it can certainly benefit from the rally mechanic, which is supposed to be the central theme to this deck, but being that it's a 1-drop, if it's on turn 1, you're not really using the rally portion. And if it's not on turn 1, then you're kind of getting a glorified firebolt in many ways if you've only gotten one rally trigger, and it still needs to kill something that is basically like a 2/2 or something along those lines, even after one rally proc, for you to get greater than firebolt value. So if what I just said confuses you, it's because there's a lot of things that need to go right for this to be worth your time. So we're going to go ahead and pull them right out. Similarly, we're going to pull out Iliac Sorcerer because, again, while it is great if you get rally triggers, being a 1-drop, you want to play it on turn 1. You don't want to wait around for the rally triggers. So that's going to go. Lastly, in the 1-drop slots, the Scion here, rally's great. Turn 1 rally's extra great, but this card, if you don't play it on turn 1, is pretty poor. Even if you do play it on turn 1, you're basically just giving +1/+1 to something in your hand, because this will die. It'll probably not only die, but give somebody some sort of value trade because the stats aren't great. The reduced consistency, because this is a tricolor deck and it has 75 cards, means you're even less likely to have this on turn 1. So if you're going to run 1-drops, you want them to be good kind of all of the time, basically. So this comes out as well. The Assassin is great. We're going to go ahead and leave that in. Ambitious Hireling is great. We're going to leave that in. We're going to go ahead and pull out Enchanted Plate, because while the plate isn't bad and card draws, welcome, we want creatures, right? Like on turn 2 or turn 1, if you have the ring, you would prefer to be putting bodies on the board. That does not help you. Similarly, Fighters Guild Hall is going to run into the same fate. We're going to go ahead and remove this because we would prefer bodies. We will, however, leave the Gavel in. I'm actually a big fan of Gavel. This, unlike the plate, provides reach. So while the plate has card draw and replaces itself and potentially allows you to trade up, this one, even if you're not value trading, meaning slapping this on an existing creature and then trading so that yours survives, this provides a little bit of reach as well, and I think that's a little bit more valuable. The Bloodkin is just not very good. We don't want the Drain, so that can go ahead and go. Forerunner is great. Rift Thane is pretty fantastic, so we're going to go ahead and leave that in. Warclaw Mercenary isn't the best 2-drop in the world. However, again, we're trying to reduce the number of cards we're pulling out, and it's good enough on a budget, so we're going to leave that in. We also want to leave some of our rally-centric cards in, so we're going to leave the Mercenary in for this particular build. Windkeep Spellsword's fantastic. It's one of the better 2-drops in the game. We're going to go ahead and leave it. Battle Rage Orc. This card is good. It's even better with Rally, but there are amazing 2-drops in the Redoran deck that you want to play that don't necessarily have rally, and there's amazing 3-drops just in general when you start thinking about things like Young Mammoth that we're going to add later, things like Morkel Gatekeeper and so on and so forth. Like 3 is a very crowded spot, so we're going to end up pulling this out to make some room. We're going to leave Bolvin Venom in because this is a value generating card. It's not like a game breaking bomb, but it's good enough. Cast Out, however, is going to come out, as is the Daedric Crescent. +2/+2 for 3 isn't very great, and then the Slay probably isn't enough to offset it. Feasting Hunger is a fantastic control card, but we're going to make this a mid-range deck. That doesn't really help us with that game plan, so this comes out. Frostbite Spider, again, is going to have the same fate as the Battle Rage Orc, and it's just not good enough compared to the other 2-drops, so it's going to come out. Haunting Spirit, still fantastic, one of the better 3-drops in the game, so that stays. Cool Lawkeeper is one of the better new creatures from Houses of Morrowind, totally worth keeping in, so we're going to keep that. Knight of Nesis. This is going to be yet another epic that we're pulling out. The thing with Knight of Nesis is while this generates a lot of value, it's generating value over time, and it's not generating value in the same way that, say, Daggerfall Mage does, where it's going to provide you reach. Also, a 2/3 body just isn't as resilient as a 2/2 with ward is. Going even a step further, all this does is put the 2/2 with guard into your hand. Doesn't guarantee you're going to get your rally trigger. The 2/2 with guard for 2 isn't very great as opposed to the tome value of something like Daggerfall Mage provides. So just kind of comparing this against Daggerfall Mage, mostly because that's another card that statistically isn't very good in the 3-drop slot, but it generates a lot of value. That's kind of what this card is meant to do, but again, this is a very crowded spot at this 3-cost location, as you'll see later when we start adding cards in, so that does come out. We are going to leave the Executioner in as a 1-of for now. It's a 2/4, but it's very often a 4/4 for 3 because you're going to hopefully be breaking a rune either the turn you play this or the following turn before you swing with this, so you're going to get some value, and it has the chance to snowball really hard, so this is a great card. Mummify does not help us with the mid-range plan. Raiding Party is the kind of card that can be amazing in decks that focus on what Raiding Party does, and with other cards in this deck you might be able to make it work. However, right now, just not good enough. Battle Spear we're going to leave in for much the same reasons that we're leaving in Warclaw Mercenary. We want to leave in some of our rally effects. We also don't want to pull absolutely everything out and start from scratch with this budget list, and this is, while not great, it's certainly good enough, I think, to warrant leaving in. Arms Master we are going to leave in. This costs 1 more than the Battle Rage, but it has the rally. We've got a lot of cards that benefit from rally, so it's a little bit easier to keep this in. Also, the 4 slot isn't nearly as crowded as the 3 slot is, so leaving this in is fine. High Defender is one of the best 4-drops in the game. We're going to leave it. Inspiring Kinsman is fantastic. We're going to leave it. Midnight Sweep, however, does not make the cut. The guards don't really help us, and having a 1-of as a prophecy card in a big 75-card deck doesn't really help us. Orcish Warhammer, again, not quite good enough to make the cut. I love Rampaging Minotaur. I like looking for excuses to play it. However, just not good enough here. We don't have enough synergy, so we're going to go ahead and cut that as well. Redoran Oathman, you could leave this in. It's a great value card. I know some people love it, but we're going to go ahead and cut this in favor of some better stuff, as are we going to cut the War Rider here, because, quite frankly, there's just better 5-drops. Dren Bodyguard, again, 5/5 guard for 5, not very good, not very inspiring. So Fetrafly Golem is interesting because on the one hand, it's really just going to be a 5/5 for 5. You won't often get to take advantage of the effect. We're not running a bunch of self-wound stuff, but the bigger this gets with rally effects, the more likely it is to trade and survive. It's also you know, another one of the epics that we have. And if you're a budget player, I don't want to pull out all of your epics. That doesn't seem very fun. So we're going to leave this in as a 1-of for now. Mummy comes out. Pillaging Tribune is going to stay in. This is entirely fine. A 5/4 with a great summon effect we can leave in. We're going to leave in our 1 Blackworm Necromancer as well as a nice 1-of. However, Cliff Hunter is coming out. And Bloodline Outcast is coming out. Triumphant Jarl is going to stay because it is fantastic card draw. And so this is now the core of what we're going to leave in. Like I said, we're taking just a little bit more than half of the deck out. But what we're going to be putting in are commons and rares. And as I said, most of these are going to be very, very safe crafts. So even though you're crafting a lot on this budget list, it's only commons, it's only rares, and these are things that you will use not just in this deck, but across many other decks. These are safe investments. So let's take a look at what we can add. Okay, so first we're going to go ahead and add one of the better aggressive 1-drops in the game, and that is Steel Scimitar. We're going to go ahead and add 3 copies. This is a card that is basically fine on every turn but the first turn. As long as you have a body on the board, you can find some use for Steel Scimitar. It's fantastic at providing very cheap reach. It's very great at allowing you to make value trades. I think that this is a much better firebolt, if you will, than the previous card that we were considering running, the Ashlander Zealot, because again, this one is going to not require nearly as much setup. You basically just need anybody on the board. This one also provides reach where the Zealot does not. So if you're looking for something that, you know, kind of does that job, this is just the better option for an aggressive deck, in my opinion. That said, that's the only 1-drop we're going to add. So we're going to go ahead and jump to the 2-drops. And we are going to go ahead and add a 3rd Valathi Assassin. I'm probably butchering that. This card is great, provides rally, provides lethal. If you play this onto an empty board on the field lane, you basically win the field lane if they don't have something with ward. They either have to deal with that or just accept that you're going to kill whatever ends up in that lane. So it's a startlingly good card, even though it might not seem that way. So we're also going to go ahead and add another 5th Legion Trainer. 5th Legion Trainer does a lot of things that we want in this deck. Buffs our guys. It's very durable for a 2-drop with the 3 health. It's just one of those cards that the longer it sits there, the more annoying it gets, and it does a lot of work for us. Similarly, in the 2-drop arena, we're going to go ahead and add 3 Orc Clan Captain for much the same reason that we're adding 5th Legion Trainer. We like to make our guys bigger, and Orc Clan Captain does that for us. Great card. We're also going to add some more Redoran Forerunners. So again, these are rares, but these fit directly into what we want to do with the deck. If these are the source of rally, they're great, but even if you have 5th Legion Trainer or Orc Clan Captain, this becomes like a charging Windkeep Spellsword, right? It has ward, has charge, has drain. So late game, if you can get one of these pretty buffed and you're in a very tight mirror match, sometimes that drain can swing things back in your favor so your opponent cannot outrace you. It's just a really versatile card. So we're going to continue on. Windkeep Spellsword is in fact good enough to run 3, as I said earlier when we were kind of going through stuff. It's one of the better 2-drops in the game. So we're going to go ahead and add another one there. Bolven Venom stays. Hunting Spirit. Hunting Spirit is fantastic. We absolutely would like to add 2 more. It is a 3/3 for 3, but unless they have some sort of silence or you play it on an empty naked board, it's basically like a 6/6 worth of stats over time for 3. Fantastic. Sign me up. I would love some more of that. Cool Lawkeeper. We do in fact want to add more Lawkeepers. Why do we want to add more Lawkeepers? Well, it's just that good. The 6 health is actually really important, with Daggeth being a thing and Daggeth caring about cards that have 5 power or more. Sometimes having 6 health means that you can wall off against those and still survive. That's why cards like Lawkeeper and Hive Defender are so important if you are worried about running into Daggeth or if you're seeing a lot of it on the ladder. This card does a lot of good things for you. Morkel Gatekeeper. We are going to go ahead and add Morkel Gatekeeper. So this is a common, and it's a pretty good one. It has Prophecy. It gives you a 4/2 worth of stats, but you can use the summon ability to, for example, make your Windkeep Spellsword trade up and take advantage of the ward. You can use it for a little bit of reach. You can spread the love. It's just a really versatile, fantastic card. It's pretty much a staple in your aggressive and mid-range strength-based decks. Moving on, we have Young Mammoth. So I mentioned that earlier when we were speaking as well. This is a staple in Endurance mid-range decks. If you run Endurance and you're anything mid-range, you want Young Mammoth. Just period. Like, it's really, really good. Next up, we're going to go to the 4-drops, and we're going to go ahead and stick in 2 Ayla's Huntmates, because we like card draw, and Ayla's Huntmate allows us to do just that. And nice, easy to craft, rare. While we're in here, though, we're also going to add another Armsmaster, because, as I said before, the 4 slot's not nearly as crowded. Having Charge is great, having Rally is great. We're going to go ahead and add 3 Ash Berserkers. So Ash Berserker also, like the Huntmate, allows us to draw cards as long as at the end of our turn we have a creature with 5 or more power. Now, why does that matter? Well, we've got a lot of things with 4 power so far, as you've seen. And that, my friend, is where both the Rally comes into play, but also cards like 5th Legion Trainer, cards like Orc Clan Captain, cards like our items that we've stuck in. All of these things are hopefully going to make these things with 4 power jump up to 5. Even the Ash Berserker itself can count itself. So this will then turn into just perpetual card draw for you. This card is fantastic. So this is quickly becoming a staple in strength-based decks as well. Again, earlier we talked about Hive Defender being a staple. It's one of the better 4-drops in the game. We're going to go ahead and stick those in and be very, very happy about it. And then we've got our Kinsman. Now, when we go to the 5-drop slots, as I said, we're only doing commons and rares. However, we are going to stick in 1 copy of Divine Fervor. You get the copy of Divine Fervor from the story mode. So if you've completed the story mode and you have been playing through and you've leveled up at some point, you will receive a support card that levels up into Divine Fervor. So everybody should have access to this without needing to craft it. So we're going to include 1 copy of this because that still keeps us budget friendly. And then we're also going to stick in Piercing Javelin. Piercing Javelin is just a nice, fine, common card. And again, it's a staple. You'll use Piercing Javelin across a large number of decks. You can feel entirely fine about crafting that. We're also going to go ahead and add Whiterun Protector. So this is a 5-cost 4/4, but as long as you're playing this when you're about to break a rune, you're basically getting a 5-cost 6/6 guard regenerate. It's played very often in, for example, like mid-range Sorcerer, sometimes mid-range Spellsword. So again, pretty safe to craft. You can use it here, be very successful. And then we also have our Triumphant Jarl that we need to add another copy of. My apologies, I thought I was on Legends decks mentally there for a minute. And in my head I went, oh yeah, I can right-click this and add another copy. But I was wrong. So Triumphant Jarl, fantastic card. We're going to go ahead and run 3 copies of this. It just draws you a bunch of cards. It's a very good tempo thing when you need it. And I am clearly forgetting some cards, so let me go ahead and check my list here. Because, oh yes, I skipped over a couple back here. So another thing while we're in the 4-drop slots, Candle Hearth Brawler. This is a 2/5 guard, but it has charge. This card is very unassuming, but it is very fantastic when you actually go and use it. We want to include 3 copies of this. Hive Defender is a 3/6, so For the same cost, you can go -1/-1, but also get charge. Charge is one of, if not the most powerful keyword in the game. In my opinion, I think it is the most powerful keyword in the game because it provides reach, provides you initiative, you get to make trades. The brawler often is, 2-for-1s, and if you've played a high value, 2-drop followed by a high value 3-drop, being able to then on turn 4 play a brawler, trade into something, and have a guard to protect the rest of your squad. Fantastic play, totally worth it. And the other card that I forgot, I skipped over it earlier, this was at the 3-drop slot, East March Crusader. This is a 4/2, but as long as you've broken a rune, then it will provide some card draw for you. Again, this is very much a staple in a lot of decks, token decks, mid-range decks. If you can play East March Crusader, chances are you're probably going to include it. If it's a mid-range or aggressive strategy, it's just really, really good. So safe craft as well. And that is our 75 cards. So again, we wanted to take this and include commons and rares from pack-based sets that you can craft. And for all of these, you can feel comfortable crafting them. These are cards that you won't just use for this deck, but you will use across many decks. So as a new player, it's pretty safe. Also, if I do mind saying so myself, we'll go ahead and mouse over this. We have a nice, good, linear curve here, which is something I'm a big fan of seeing when I play mid-range decks. We want a lot of 2-drops, followed by slightly less 3-drops, slightly less 4-drops, because that really helps you with playing things on curve, hitting that consistency. So this is the list. Now, just like I've done with the other videos, we're going to go ahead and jump on casual and play a game just so that we can show how this deck performs. Just to kind of walk you through playing it. It plays like a basic mid-range strategy, but sometimes it really helps just to see things in action. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's jump into a game and see how it goes. Alright, so here we go. We have our budget Redoran mid-range deck. In this game we're paired up against Halalu. Now, at the time of filming this, Halalu is a force to be reckoned with on the ladder. So this will be really interesting to see how this goes. Halalu is very, very good at flooding the board with a lot of very cheap and effective creatures. It refills its hand very easily. Kind of curious to see how this plays out. Now on the next turn, we're gonna probably lead off with the assassin. Even though this is nice for like our future cards, we want to try to take control of this field lane. We also want to try to get the rally going. So playing this into this doesn't feel as good as playing this into, say, Bolvin or something similar. Well, alright, this is not typically something played in Halalu, and now I am thoroughly confused.
Should have been more words.
So we're gonna go ahead and do the rally thing.
I would rather die than see House Redoran dishonored.
Play our Bolvin. At this point, Bolvin is sadly just a vanilla 3/3 for 3 with rally, because we had him in hand as opposed to triggering him from our deck, but that's okay. Playing a second rally really helps because if both of these survive, we get 2 shots at trying to buff this, and the more we can buff this before the use, the better off we are. In an ideal, perfect world, we would get both triggers on the Forerunner, because then we could play 5th Legion Trainer, swing with our Forerunner, and generate a ton of value.
I shall prove my right to rule.
But it looks like instead we're just going to have a really, really large Whiterun Protector. We're going to keep this
If you're looking for trouble, you'll find
rally train going then. Since we're not going to play anything with 5th Legion, like if we played this, we wouldn't have been able to generate any other creatures. We're going to play the thing that protects our board.
For a practical demonstration.
And try to go from there.
You took a wrong turn, stranger.
So there we go. There's one trigger on our Forerunner.
Prove my right to rule.
Should have been more worthy.
So let's go ahead and play our 5th Legion
Training is
trainer.
over. It's time to
And
act.
let's do a Windkeep Spellsword over here. The reason Windkeep goes fine over here, not just because this lane is full, but because of the 5th Legion. This goes to a 3-2, and with the ward can potentially trade here.
Just tell me who to stab.
So we have to assume we're going to see a bunch of shenanigans now from our friend, the Halalu player. They will get to trigger Haunted Manor this time around.
Here's how it's done.
They get a couple of rally triggers there as
We'll
well.
hold, no matter what.
And that will be a large East March Crusader. So we have some interesting decisions to make here. It's going to depend on how our rallies fall, I think. I think we're going to go ahead and do some rally stuff first, and then decide if we want to use a Javelin or not. We know that we want to make this trade. Getting rid of a 6-4 means this survives. We're also going to go ahead and
I shall prove my right to
get
rule.
those out of the way as well. So we have a big Haunting Spirit. That's buffed. This is still sadly just a 2-2. We're about to break a rune, so I think playing the Protector makes the most sense.
The city is safe.
Let's go ahead and play this over here.
You can't defeat me.
Nowhere. Safe found you.
So now we get a big 11-10 Werewolf. Strong chance that this does not survive, but the fact that they have to use resources on it is good for us. So if this eats a Javelin or something similar, that's fine, because that'll soak up a lot of their magicka and thus a lot of their tempo. And even if it's something cheaper, like Finish Off, for example, it either means that they had to trade this in and use Finish Off, or use something else from hand and finish off. The point is, we want them to focus on dealing with this, so this part of our board stays relatively untouched, so that we can try to force more rally triggers here and use this for reach. Because right now, we have more than enough for lethal on just this side of the board plus the Enforcer.
We'll hold, no matter what.
So that's a good sign for us. If they're doing that, they're digging for answers. There's a Hive Defender. And that's going to be game in our favor because we do have the Piercing Javelin in hand. So we'll go ahead and use the Javelin, and then we will swing with our Werewolf because it skips the last rune. And there you have it. You just play value creatures and try to snowball your position. Again, pretty straightforward mid-range play. If you're not familiar with how to play a mid-range deck, check out some other videos. Hopefully this helped. Hopefully this gives you ideas for what to do with your Redoran deck. Thanks for watching, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands.